Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 2014 commencement speaker, Dr. Kay Warren.
It is an honor to be the commencement speaker for you this year. Thank you, President Corey, for the kind invitation. These things get in the way. Anybody with me on that? Okay. Rick and I and Saddleback Church we look forward to an exciting exploration of how to bring the strengths of our church and Biola University in fresh ways around mental illness for the glory of God and the kingdom of God. Class of 2014, you came to Biola because you felt the education it offered you was excellent and it would prepare you to competently and capably and skillfully enter the career of your choice. And now you are finished. It is a big yay moment. Congratulations. You have worked hard, you've slaved, you've sacrificed, you've studied, you've laughed, cried, panicked a few times, and now you're crossing the finish line, and I cheer you on. In our brief time together, I have two things that I'd like to pass on to you. They are two truths that I have learned to appreciate in a new way this past year following the death of our youngest son, Matthew. Deep sorrow is clarifying because it strips away all the extraneous trappings of our lives and leaves us with only the essentials. It leaves us with what really matters when it's all been said and done. And so here are the two things that in this past year I have decided are the essentials when it's all been said and done. These are the two things at the center of it all. First is compassion for fellow human beings, and second is love for Jesus and his church. Let me illustrate it for you. A few years ago, I went to Mother Teresa's Home for the Dying in Calcutta, India, as a volunteer. It was something I had always wanted to do, and I went with high hopes and great expectations, and I expected to have a great time. I was an idiot because I hadn't been there more than about 5 minutes before I was ready to leave. I was completely overcome by the sights and the smells and the sounds of dying men and women. On one side of this small building were 50 dying men, and on the other side of the building, separated by only a thin wall, were 50 dying women in various stages. And I was quickly overcome. I couldn't stand it. I didn't know what to do, my feelings and emotions, and I thought that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. And so I retreated as quickly as I could to a corner on the women's side and began to fold paper bandages, just trying to stay out of the way, hoping against hope that my shift was going to be over soon and I could leave. And so as I was sitting in this corner with my eyes down, folding paper bandages, trying to ignore the sounds, the screams of maggots being pulled from the open sores of people around me and of people in terrible condition, I looked up. And when I looked up, I caught the eye of a woman across the room on a cot, a dying woman. And I quickly looked back down because I didn't want to make eye contact. I didn't mean to do that, but I did. And when I looked up, she was beckoning to me, beckoning urgently for me to come over to her. And I put my eyes back down in my folded bandages and hoping that maybe she didn't see me. And I looked up again in a few seconds, and she was still motioning urgently for me to come. And so I got up reluctantly with great fear, trepidation, my stomach in a gigantic knot. And I walked over to this woman on a cot. And the moment I sat down on the cot next to her, she began to pour out to me what I would assume was her life story. She was sobbing. She was weeping. She was hysterical. She was speaking Bengali, and I had no idea what she was saying. And I was instantly saying, God, what do I do? What do I say? Nothing in my Christian faith had prepared me to sit on a cot with a dying woman speaking a language I didn't understand. But as I sat there, terrified, aghast at what I saw, I was suddenly filled with compassion, and it was as though I could understand everything she was saying. And suddenly I understood that she was telling me how she ended up alone and abandoned and dying in Mother Teresa's Home for the Dying, how her family had not been able to take care of her, what were the circumstances that led her to be at this place in this moment, and how alone she felt, and how she couldn't believe this was the way her life was going to end. And I said, God, you're going to have to interpret for me because we don't speak the same language, but I pray by your Spirit that as I speak words back to her, you will translate what is in my heart and what is in your heart for her. And I put my arms around this woman and I drew her close and I drew her face up next to mine and I began to wipe the tears from her face and my arms around her and I said, you are not alone. You may think that God has forgotten you, that you are abandoned and you are here alone in this world, but God has sent me today to be a reminder to you that he has not forgotten you, that he loves you, that he cares for you, and that even though this life has obviously held tremendous pain and sorrow for you, there is a home for you in heaven because of what Jesus has done. And my hands around you are his embrace. And my hands touching your face are his fingers wiping the tears from your face. You are not alone. You've worked hard to get here today. Thousands of hours of study and research and projects and practice. But my friends, none of it matters if you do not have compassion for your fellow human being. Tell me, what difference does it make if you can create masterful lesson plans and have no compassion for the students you teach? What difference does it make if you reach your goal of political office and you don't have compassion for the people you're representing? What difference does it make if you can design a building with architecture that takes the breath away of everyone who looks at it and you're a lousy human being? What difference does it make if you cannot enter into the pain of another and offer the simple gift of your presence in the face of suffering? If you can't move past the awkwardness of vulnerability and authenticity, then all of your knowledge and credentials and degrees are nothing but words on a piece of fancy paper. The second essential at the center of all of it is love for Jesus and his church. The story of how Mother Teresa's Home for the Dying provided care for the throwaway citizens of Calcutta is really an indictment on the Christians in that city. Where was the local church? I'm so glad that Mother Teresa and her sisters have heard the call of God to care compassionately for those who are on the margins and the fringes. But where were the believers? Where are the believers in that city who will pick up the broken bodies from the gutter? Where are the families who would open their homes to the outcasts so that they don't die alone? It's not the primary job of an NGO or even the government, but it is the job of the church. As was read in Ephesians 1, it says at the center of all of this, Christ rules the church, because the church, you see, is not peripheral to the world. The world is peripheral to the church. And the church is Christ's body in which he speaks and acts, by which he fills everything with his presence. If we could be completely honest, and we don't really have that opportunity, but if you and I could just sit down and have a cup of coffee together and you were to tell me about your journey, some of you might say that during these 4 years of higher education at an incredible Christian university, some of you have grown disenchanted with the local church. It could be out of boredom, it could be out of frustration, it could be because you miss your church and home and you never reestablished here, it could be because of busyness, because of a decreased closeness with God. There are 1,000 reasons why that might have happened. And in your discontent with the church, the question begs to be asked, which is, why not just join a service club? Why not just start a charity? Why not just start a 501c3 to help people? How is the church different from these other organizations, and why does it matter? Ephesians 1 answers it. It says the church is not peripheral to the world is peripheral to the church is it. God has put all of his eggs in the church basket. And if we don't get it done, it will not get done. So I beg you, I earnestly beg you, that you not walk past the church of Jesus Christ in your pursuit of your chosen career. The truth is that the church is messy. It's made up of a bunch of sinners like me and you. The Bible talks about how the church is the bride of Christ, and someday she will be presented to him pure and spotless. But right now, the bride's dress is torn and messy and dirty. She's not a very pretty bride sometimes, but she is the only vehicle by which God has chosen to do his work in the world. You cannot say you love Jesus and hate his church. You cannot say that you love Jesus and have disdain or contempt for his church. It is his body. And in his church, in his body, there's room for everyone. Everyone. For the posers and the pretenders. For the powerful and the powerless. For the brainiacs and the idiots. For the popular and the unpopular. For the sick and the healthy. There's room for the sinful and the righteous. There's room in God's church for the geeks and the freaks and the dorks. For the jocks and the athletically challenged. There's room in God's church for the whole and the broken. There's room for the winners and the losers, for the strong and the weak. There's room for those who never seem to fail. And there's room for those who never seem to do anything but fail. There's room for the drunks and the druggies and the addicts and the abusers and the abused, the dealers, the murderers, the rapists, the thieves, the beautiful, the ugly, and all those average ones in between. There's room in God's church for every race, every language, every ethnic group, every gender. There's room in God's church for those who don't fit neatly into any category. All have a place in his church, and all are worthy of our compassion. My friends, when it is all been said and done about you, I pray that you will use these two benchmarks to measure the success of your life. Did I live a life of compassion for my fellow human beings? Did I love Jesus and his church? And if the answer to those two questions is yes, well done. Well done.
Okay, Warren, thank you for your thoughtful, provocative, grace-filled message that challenged us this evening. And we will take you up on the challenge to work collaboratively with Saddleback Church and your network of churches and pastors on many different fronts, not the least of which is on the issue of mental illness, because we share with you the same convictions that we are serious about the values of a compassion for others and a love for Jesus Christ and his church. Thank you. God bless you.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.